welcome in to another episode of Women's Basketball Now. This is the Hoop Central YouTube channel, and I'm your host, Hamilton Neal. As always, we thank you guys for taking the time to join us. Had a little break here on the channel, getting some new content ready. Got a lot of episodes of Women's Basketball Now coming up right after this one. This particular episode, though, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. First, we're going to talk some recruiting news as top overall recruit Mikaylah Williams in the class of 2023 has announced her top 5. We'll then go over some new UConn players of interest. Morgan Valley now following 3 new recruits, Darianna Alexander out of the class of 2025, Ava Heiden and Kayleigh Heckel out of the class of 2024. More details on that coming up in a moment. And then, to wrap up the show, we're going to be talking about the USA Basketball U17 national team roster. Very excited to talk about these U17 and U18 tournaments that are coming up this month. U18 tournament starting next week. In July, we'll have the U17 tournament starting in Hungary. And that's the roster, that's the team that we're talking about here in this episode. It's the U17 national team. So details on the roster and the tournament in early July coming up at the end and the later portion of this show. So again, we're going to get things started by talking about 2023 number 1 overall player Mikaylah Williams, as she has announced her top 5 list. It is LSU, Baylor, Texas A&M, Duke, and Ole Miss. There's a lot of speculation with Mikaylah Williams and her recruitment of late, as far as what schools were in the mix and how many schools would be in a final cut. And here we see a top 5. No surprise to see LSU right there. She's out of Louisiana, and as the in-state school and as a on-the-rise program with Kim Mulkey at the helm, I feel like they are still the team to beat at this point. But you have a couple other SEC programs, Texas A&M and Ole Miss. Joni Taylor is now at Texas A&M as their new head coach, and obviously she's building a very good program there. Ole Miss is a team that's started to improve a little bit. And then you have Baylor and Duke. I think Baylor's really a dark horse here. I really don't feel like Duke is in the mix, or they're going to be in the mix to land her quite. I think they're just kind of in here to fill out this list. But Baylor is a player, I think, because, again, she's out of Louisiana, but she's close to Texas as well. And obviously that's another program that is very, very strong. Obviously Kim Mulkey left Baylor to go to LSU. Nikki Collin came in and did a good job this first year. Got them to the NCAA tournament as a number 2 seed. Obviously got upset early by South Dakota, but nonetheless a very successful season for them. And overall, I feel like they are going to be a very strong program coming up. So for Mikaylah Williams, I feel like it's going to come down to probably LSU and Baylor, with Texas A&M right there on the outside. And whoever lands her is going to be getting a supreme offensive talent, because I just got finished watching some more film of her this past weekend, and every single tape that you watch of her, you see one thing step out. She has an elite jab step and is very shifty. There are so many things we can go over with her game, but the way she uses that jab step, shifty with her crossover, she is a very tough cover on the perimeter. It's kind of something that you saw James Harden used to do. With that jab step, that cross, he's been so elite with that over the years. And when you look at prime James Harden, that's what I thought of when I saw Mikaylah Williams with her jab step, with her crossover, just the ability to pick her spots, get to the mid-range, hit that 3-point jump shot. That's what I thought of. So when you look at Mikaylah Williams, that's a big part of what she does on the outside. Again, is her ability to cross you up. Her step-back jumper as well is killer. Hesitation, catch-and-shoot game is also very strong. When the point guard finds her off the pass, she's right there. She moves and cuts without the basketball as well, because she's playing that off-guard position. So I really love her game. And there's no question that she is the best player here in this class. And she overtook a couple other elite recruits to get that number 1 spot. For a while there, we were talking about JuJu Watkins as the number 1 player in this class. And she is still among the best in the country. But when you're talking about a complete offensive game, Mikaylah Williams really checks every box. Again, with her ability to shoot and score at all 3 levels, along with that crossover, her hesitation, her shiftiness, all of that equates to number 1 player in the country. And again, I feel like LSU is the favorite at this point, like I said just a minute ago. But keep an eye on Baylor and A&M. I really don't feel like Ole Miss and Duke are in the mix as much here. I feel like they're on the outside looking in here. But it's going to be an interesting recruitment down the stretch. And no UConn here in this list. UConn was a school that was rumored to be kind of in the running for Mikaylah Williams. Even though there was some interest there, we knew that UConn really wasn't going to pick it up. That maybe there was some surface level interest, but it really wasn't going to go past that. And that LSU was really out in front. There's still a long way to go here in this recruitment. Again, we'll see when visits are coming up, things like that. And again, when we're talking about Mikaylah Williams, it's been foggy as far as the recruitment is concerned. She's just one of those recruits, kind of like Chloe Kitts and others. You just don't find out that much until you get a final list, things like that. But now we know who the final 5 schools are. Again, they're LSU, Baylor, Texas A&M, Duke, and Ole Miss. Now let's go over and talk about UConn and some new players that they are interested in. So with UConn, we see Morgan Valley, one of their assistant coaches, follow players on social media constantly. And that's kind of how we get the indication that UConn is recruiting new prospects. And 3 new players are getting interest from the Huskies right now. Darianna Alexander from 2025, Ava Heiden, and Kayleigh Heckel from 2024. So the first player I want to talk about out of these 3 is Darianna Alexander from the class of 2025. She's ranked number 2 overall in the class, just right behind Jasmine Davidson. 6 foot, plays the off-guard spot, and already has a very impressive list of offers. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Georgia, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Louisville, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio State, Michigan State. Just some of the schools in the mix right now. And when you look at her offer list, it's one of the larger ones here in the class of 2025 because these 25 prospects really haven't seen their lists explode yet. It's getting to that point now. You know, with them playing AAU ball, their next high school season coming up, schools are going to be more all in on these players coming up. But as far as right now, you know, outside of Leah Chavez, Jasmine Davidson, Darianna Alexander, we don't see a ton of players with 15, 20 offers at this point. But she's one of them. She's out of Purcell Martin High School in Ohio and is one of the most complete players in this class on the interior, with her ability to cut, with her ability to get to the rim. Her transition game is very strong. I still feel like she's getting her game down on the outside. She's still developing that. But when you look at her ability, again, to get to the rim with a head of steam, she's maybe the best in this class at doing that. Now, Jasmine Davidson is the most complete player in this class because of her guard-like skills as a wing and her ability to shoot the basketball from the mid-range and shoot it elite from the three-point line. But some people have compared Darianna Alexander to Candace Parker in that she can get to the rim and she can cut and slash and she can rebound really well for a guard. For an off guard, she can do a lot of that. And when you watch tape of her, you see her active on the glass against other post players, pulling it down and then leading the break. And again, she's really, really good at that. Again, as a cutter, she takes contact very well, she's physical, and runs the break very well for an off guard. So definitely feel like that number 2 ranking is justified and it's very accurate. They're from ESPNW. And we just talked about in one of our past videos the rankings that they just put out, the debut rankings for the class of 2025. So go check out that video as well where we break down most of the rankings. We go in depth on the top 10. We talk about some underrated sleeper prospects as well that are outside. So definitely check out that video. And we did talk a little bit about Darianna Alexander there as well. So now she's getting interest from UConn. Ava Heiden, let's talk about her next. Sherwood High School, she plays for in Oregon. She stands 6'4", plays the forward spot. Is someone that can play the 4, but is also capable of obviously playing the 5. She can play either of those post positions. And watching film of her, what you see is elite timing on her ability to block shots. When she sees someone coming in, the timing is just there. She is an elite shot blocker, an elite defensive player. Again, the timing is outstanding. Very good cutter. When she's out on the perimeter a little bit further, she uses a shot fake, a little head fake. She can get to the rim. She's pretty athletic and pretty quick for a post player at that size. And I feel like a lot of schools are going to really start to recruit her because you can't teach 6'4" with the ability to cut with that quick first step. So I feel like defensively, she's had it there first, and her offensive game is coming around. And that's the thing about post players that you got to understand is they're going to have that part of their game first. Defensively, the instincts, the intangible things they're going to have. But offensively, they got to develop outside of the post game. Coming out further away from the basket, 15-foot jump shot, moving out, trying to develop a three-point game. And again, that's not as big a part of what she does now, but she's still a very young player, and I feel like is going to get better with that over time. Going into her junior season coming up this year at Sherwood, and then Kayleigh Heckel, just an elite shooter of the basketball. At the point guard position, she can distribute, she can handle, and she can run the break in transition, but she can move without the basketball as well, and a lot of people find her, even though she plays point, she's out there on the three-point line waiting for that basketball to shoot it. And again, when you watch film of her, you see the quick release, an elite three-point shooter. Almost every time it's going to be a splash, okay? So when you watch film of her, look for that. She picks her spots well, like I said, and is quick driving. She can get to the rim, and she can run the break in transition. So she is a 3-level scorer first type of point guard. That's really what she does well. So overall, I think she's a very complete player. I think schools are still starting to get to know her and still starting to recruit her. Texas Tech is a school that's extended an offer. Buffalo offered her as well. So definitely, when you're looking at UConn with all these players, again, it's very early interest, and maybe don't take it too seriously yet, because again, interest can rise or it can fall with certain prospects. It's just how the recruiting board kind of moves and shifts for all of these programs. And again, for UConn, they're recruiting a lot of players, especially in 2024 right now, and starting to recruit more in 2025. So this is very early, surface level kind of interest, but it's definitely something to take note of because these are some of the best players in the country at their positions. I think Heckel and Heiden, they're very underrated at their positions. I think they're still not ranked high enough, and I feel like Alexander is placed perfectly at number 2 and will push Jasmine Davidson for the number 1 spot, I think, when it's all said and done in 2025. So UConn extending interest to those 3 players, and that's some of the only recruiting stuff that we have going on right now. We'll talk more about this on future episodes when it comes to other programs and what they're doing, but again, UConn extending interest to those 3 there. And now we're going to wrap up this show by talking about USA basketball. And this is something that in women's basketball now we haven't talked as much about. The national teams, things like that. It's that time of the year again when we have U17, U18. Very, very excited to talk about these rosters. And in one of our future episodes coming up very soon, in the coming days, we're going to talk about the U18 national team roster. They'll be playing starting June 13th. This U17 national team that we're talking about here today will be starting play in July for their tournament. So it's still a while until they get out on the floor in Debrecen, Hungary. But again, we're going to talk about this roster. And again, all of these players, super, super talented, and I think are going to bring something a little bit different to the table. And that's always what the national team committee is looking for. They're looking for the best players that can bring something different, and they can be versatile and dynamic together. So filling out this roster first is Morgan Shelley, 2024 4-star guard, ranked number 28 overall in the class, followed by Breya Cunningham, 2023 5-star post, Jada Williams, 5'6" point guard in the class of 2023, Mikaylah Williams, number 1 overall player in the class of 2023, Hannah Hidalgo, ranked number 5 overall in the class of 23, 5'6" point guard, JuJu Watkins, the number 2 overall player in the class of 23, Kennedy Ume, 2024 4-star forward, McKinley Randolph, 5-star forward in the class of 2024, Jelani Cambridge, ranked number 2 overall in the class of 2024, Sanawa Agara, ranked 40th overall in the class of 2023, Madison Booker, 5-star forward in the class of 2023, and Jaden Donovan, ranked 3rd overall in the class of 2023, 6-foot guard. Very, very skilled roster. Again, it's dynamic. These players bring something a little bit different to the table, and I think when you're first looking at the backcourt prospects, Morgan Shelley, the first player we mentioned there, number 28 overall, 6'2", as a 4-star guard, I think is going to elevate at some point, very soon, to 5-star status. Because her ability, again, to move and to cut, again, off guards have to have the ability to do that, plus have elite 3-point shooting, is something that a lot of schools are looking at right now. And that's a program at Archbishop Mitty that she plays for that is elite. Haley Jones came out of there. Sue Phillips is her head coach, and she is the leader of this coaching staff for this U17 national team. She's the head coach for the squad. So those two are obviously very familiar, and those two I think are going to continue to get along well. And following Sue Phillips on this coaching staff are Tom McConnell of Indiana University of Pennsylvania and Brittany Johnson from Evanston Township High School. So again, very, very skilled guard in Morgan Shelley, and her head coach Sue Phillips going to be leading the squad. And then you look at some of the other backcourt players. Jada Williams obviously is a big name out of high school basketball, committed to UCLA, 5-star, one of the most popular players in the country. Then there's JuJu Watkins out of California, ranked number 2. McKaylah Williams, we talked about her earlier. You go down the line, the backcourt players on this team are elite. Along with all of those other guards, you have Hannah Hidalgo, you look at as well Jaden Donovan. Again, backcourt pieces on this team are outstanding. And then when you look at the forwards and the post players, again, Breya Cunningham, 5-star post in the class of 2023. Still considering Arizona, UCLA, Oregon, Texas, and USC right now. her decision should be coming at some point either this fall or the spring leading up to her first year of college. Again, I don't expect it to be that long, possibly looking at a fall decision. Again, we don't know anything at this point as far as what her timeline is, but she recently cut her list down. She's obviously one of the best post players in the country and definitely the best post player on this team, I feel. Then you have Kennedy Ume, 4-star out of Maryland, who's very underrated. I think is a 5-star caliber player. McKinley Randolph, also out of that class. You go down the line, Madison Booker obviously is one of the best senior forwards in the country, still being recruited by a number of programs, Mississippi State, UConn, Oregon, Louisville's right there as well. So really excited to see this U17 national team play, and they will be taking part in the FIBA U17 World Cup from July 9th through 17th, and that is in Debrecen, Hungary. So again, still a while before this team gets on the floor, but very, very excited to see what this group does under this coaching staff, again led by Sue Phillips. And remember, some of these players have USA basketball experience. You look at Breya Cunningham, Jada Williams, JuJu Watkins, Jelani Cambridge, Madison Booker, and Jaden Donovan. All of those players were part of the U16 national team that won gold last year. So those players have already been within the USA basketball program. They know what this is all about. And for the first-timers, they're going to have very good leadership there with some of those players, again, that have played on the U16 team. McKayla Williams played on the 3x3 team last year during August, and she did very well during that. So obviously, a lot of these players have USAB experience. And again, for the newcomers, very good players to learn under. And again, a very good coaching staff to learn under as well. So very excited to go over all the things that we did here on this episode of Women's Basketball Now. The first thing that we talked about was Mikaylah Williams dropping her top 5. LSU, Baylor, Texas A&M, Duke, and Ole Miss. We then talked about some new players of interest for the UConn Huskies. And again, to wrap things up, the U17 roster for the 2022 FIBA U17 World Cup. Again, that's all the time we have on this episode of Women's Basketball Now. Continue to keep it locked here on Hoop Central for more future episodes. This is Hamilton Neal signing off for now. I'll see you next time.